What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HAWGsports.com. Plenty to talk about on today's show. Arkansas starting fall camp later this week. We're going to go over the ins and outs of fall camp, what that means, what the schedule looks like, break down some things with that. Also, Arkansas just completed a big visit weekend in recruiting, so plenty to talk about with Danny West on that and a lot of basketball news as well. We'll discuss all that and more on today's episode of Hog Sports Live. Before we get started, of course, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. Be sure to follow the page if you haven't done so already. Also available on YouTube. Be sure to follow that page and hit a like or a thumbs up on both of those channels. Hit the notification bell on YouTube so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. Also available on Apple Podcasts. We'd love to have that 5-star rating and leave a review. Let other people know what to expect with the show. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. And HawgSports.com is just $1 right now for your first month. So, if you want all of our fall camp coverage, along with all the recruiting news that Danny West brings and basketball stuff with Curtis Wilkerson, anything else that Andrew Ellis brings for baseball or anything else, then go ahead and subscribe right now for just $1 your first month. That'll take you all the way up to the first game. At that point, you'll be eligible for Paramount Plus for absolutely free, which is a $100 value for the lifetime of your subscription to Hog Sports. It's a pretty good deal, so jump on board now. All right. Fall camp. So the official schedule hasn't been released yet. What we've heard is August 4th is the report date, and August 5th will be the first practice. That's usually how they do it right after that. And that kind of coincides with how it has to be, just based on the rules. So you get 29 days leading up to the first game, 30 days away. So you get 29 days to hold 25 practices, okay? So that basically gives you a day off each week. So the way that again, this isn't official, but this is how it's going to be, basically. 25 practices over 29 days. 7 of these 25 practices must be conducted with helmets only. Okay? There's a 7-day period where you have to work up to full pads, so you can slowly put on, spiders and shells and all that stuff all the way up to where you're full pads. It used to be 5 days, but it's 7 days now. So that just kind of leads into the idea that they would start on a Friday, hold a Saturday practice, take Sunday off, and then go 5 more days to complete the 7-day process, and then you have a scrimmage on Saturday, that following Saturday. So what is that, the 13th? You would have your first scrimmage. So you can have 2 scrimmages, so you scrimmage the 13th, and then you scrimmage the following Saturday, which is the 20th. Okay, that doesn't include the mock game that you'd have on the 27th as your rehearsal week. Okay, so just getting back. So you can have 18 contact practices, okay? So that means you're doing a little bit of hitting and stuff, but nothing, you're not in full pads during all those. So among those 18 contact practices, you can have up to 9 days in full gear, okay? Now, that just means leg pads. There'll be days where they just have shoulder pads on, and those will be pretty physical practices. They do those throughout the year also. There can be no more than 2 consecutive days of full contact practices. There can be no more than 75 minutes of full contact in a practice. There can be no more than 2 scrimmages. We outlined that already. And there will be a maximum of 105 players allowed to participate at a time. Now, you can add 20 players after that when school starts on August 22nd. Okay, so that's kind of how things will shake out. So that's 85 scholarship players, 20 invited walk-ons, basically. It doesn't, you have players that are injured. I don't guess now, but if you have a player injured during camp, then you can replace him with another player. So the way I think it's going to go, you have the 5th and the 6th. It's a Friday and Saturday you practice, Sunday off. Then you'll go the next week, 8th through the 13th, Sunday off, and then the next week, the 15th to the 20th. Okay, and then that will mark the end. That 20th scrimmage will mark the end, technically, of fall camp. All right, and then you have what would be called a rehearsal week, pregame week. You'll go Monday through Saturday. And that's the 22nd to the 27th. That 27th will be a mock game. All right, and then game week, Monday through Friday, August 29th through September 2nd. And then the game on the 3rd. So that September 2nd would be a walkthrough. And then game day, Saturday, September 3rd, 2:30 p.m., Donald W. Reynolds Razorback Stadium on ESPN. It's coming. Why is it called fall camp? I don't know. Maybe because it's called the fall semester. Maybe I think that maybe has something to do with that. I don't know exactly. I mean, we're in the dead of summer, but the fall semester, there's a full month of summer before we even hit the fall. So maybe that's kind of how to look at it so it makes sense to you. College football rankings. Brad Crawford came out with his top 25 coaches entering the 2022 season. I can remember back in 2020 when these kind of lists were coming out, like ranking all Power 5 coaches, and Sam Pittman was 65 out of 65 Power 5 coaches, dead last. This list has him 23rd. I think that's fair enough. You have another good year just like you did last year, and, we'll talk. We'll talk about moving that up, maybe even significantly. I mean, Mel Tucker at Michigan State, it's hard to argue. Pat Fitzgerald, been at Northwestern forever. Mac Brown, you look at his resume. James Franklin. Lane Kiffin even. Mario Cristobal. Kirk Ferentz, Matt Campbell. I mean, when you look at some of the things that these guys have done, Mark Stoops, Dave Aranda might be a bit high. I mean, he's only been there a couple years, and I know they won the Big 12 last year. But 12th is a pretty lofty spot. I mean, that's just behind Mike Gundy, who really has done a lot more in his career. Jim Harbaugh, 10. I mean, he had one good year, I guess. I guess he's done, you go back to Stanford, the things he did there. Kyle Whittingham at Utah, a long career. Luke Fickell, number 8 at Cincinnati. Brian Kelly, 7 at LSU. Ryan Day, Ohio State. Jimbo Fisher at 5. You're talking about national championship coaches. Jimbo should probably be higher. I mean, when you consider national championship, Lincoln Riley hasn't won a national championship. He's at 4. Dabo Swinney at 3. I think he should probably be 2, just based on his career, what he's done. And Kirby Smart's at 2, but he should probably be at 3. I think he maybe gets that because he won the national championship last year, and we all know who's number 1. I'm not even going to say his name. All right, just looking at the fall camp scholarship scenarios as we get ready here. Arkansas has had 19 players enter the transfer portal since it all started. There were over 3,000 players enter the transfer portal in the past year. So we start the cycle August 1st. That's when the transfer portal cycle begins in our minds. So there's been 3,000-something players enter the transfer portal. There were 19 Razorbacks that entered. That's more than any other year since we've been starting the 24/7 sports transfer portal, since we have our own. So 19 players since the start of last year entered the portal. You're still fine. I've got Arkansas at 84 total scholarship players, okay? Just 2 quarterbacks. Just KJ Jefferson and Malik Hornsby. Only 2 quarterbacks on scholarship right now for the 84. I got 6 running backs, 11 wide receivers. That does not include Harper Cole. So Harper Cole and Jackson Woodard were put on scholarship in the spring, but it was retroactive because they had 2 spots available last year, so they were able to count them to last year's 85 total, if that makes sense. Now, they get money now, so it's kind of like they're on scholarship now because they're already paid for last year, but their scholarships aren't necessarily guaranteed the next year. Okay, that may work out for them, but right now that's how it is. Okay, so not counting them. They have 12 scholarship wide receivers, but technically only 11 for 2022. Hope I didn't confuse everybody. 7 tight ends, 15 offensive linemen, which is the low end of where they want to be from a scholarship total. 8 defensive ends, 7 defensive tackles. 7 linebackers, 7 cornerbacks, 6 safeties, 4 nickels, 2 punters, 1 kicker, 1 long snapper. That's 42 on offense. Is that right? Let me make sure this is right. Okay. Where are we at here? Having a little refresh problem. Okay. So that's 41 on offense, 39 on defense, 4 specialists. Okay. Excuse me. All right. I had a couple. This is from an old list. All right. Now it's refreshed. So 1 kicker, 1 long snapper, 2 punters, 3 nickels, 7 safeties, 7 corners, 7 linebackers, 7 defensive tackles, 8 defensive ends. Okay, we're back on track now. 15 offensive linemen. Okay, So that's where Arkansas is right now from a scholarship standpoint. So there's a lot of awards that are not awards, but preseason award watch list. The latest is the Bednarik Award preseason watch list. Bumper Pool, Jalen Catalon named to that list. I think there's still a few others, but they kind of been coming out one at a time every day. All these Football Writer Association awards and whatnot. Athlon's college football bowl projections have been updated. They have Arkansas playing Iowa in the Music City Bowl in Nashville. Are you okay with that? They actually say, they've got a good chance to have 2 top 25 teams in Nashville for that bowl. Nashville's a good place for bowl games, good city. It's not going to be as warm as Florida would be, or Texas, Houston, but still, pretty good bowl overall. I think Arkansas fans have their sights set higher. I think they're looking at that New Year's 6 area. We all are. It's a possibility. It all starts, we're doing all this preseason award stuff and, preseason top 25 polls, which you find Arkansas in most of those, bowl game projections. But really, Arkansas has to start fall camp, and then they had to play Cincinnati. And Cincinnati doesn't have a quarterback ironed out. Right now, they've got Evan Prater and Ben Bryant. It's a pretty interesting situation because both of those guys backed up Desmond Ritter. They both backed him up in different years. Prater was his backup last year. Bryant was his backup before that. Bryant transferred to Eastern Michigan, threw for 3,000 yards, and then transferred back to Cincinnati. It's a pretty weird scenario, but that's what happened. So they've got that quarterback battle going on. It'll be an interesting thing to follow. It's a big game right out of the gate. ESPN 2:30. Arkansas's football recruiting class is currently ranked 13th nationally on the 24/7 Sports Composite. They are 12th on 24/7 Sports individual site ranking with 23 commitments. Not expecting that list to move anytime soon as far as adding commitments. Not expecting that to move anytime soon. Yeah, 12th on 24/7 Sports. 7 4-star composite commitments. I think they have nine players who are a 4-star on one of the recruiting services, one of the 4 recruiting services. All right, time to go to Danny West. So Arkansas had a cookout this weekend. Now, it was rainy, but it wasn't too bad, I guess, on Saturday. But it did rain. So we're going to find out how everything went from Danny West.
What's up, buddy?
Hey, Danny. So we're just going over this recruiting class and looking at the numbers and everything like that. And we know Arkansas had a big summer cookout. It rained a lot this weekend, but how did everything go?
I think it was a success, not a ton of big news, not that we were really expecting any. This thing was really geared toward the committed guys for the most part, and most of them made it. When you've got 23 commitments going into fall camp, summer camp, whatever we want to call it here, but 23 is a really big number, and so with a month-long dead period, starting today, all of August is dead. So, it's always important to get them back on campus one more time and, just keep that line of communication going with them. And then, it kind of allows you to focus on the upcoming season. But outside of the committed guys for 2023, they did have some notable, that's an understatement. They had some big-time 2024 and 25 prospects here on campus. We can run through some of those. Michael Hawkins, I'll start with the 2024 4-star quarterback out of Allen, Texas. You might have heard of Allen. This thing with Michael, I'm not ready to say he's a top target, but this thing sure seems to be going pretty quickly. They had him up here on, I want to say June 18th, offered him. He really enjoyed that visit, had a lot to tell me about the first one. Then he decided to come back this past Saturday that's a really quick turnaround. That always jumps out to us. And the second part of that is they offered little brother. So he's Malik is a 2025 corner at Allen High. So, you know, you couple those things together there, offering little brother, quick turnaround visit. I'm just saying that sticks out to me. We've seen a couple of little brother offers, if we can call it that, for lack of a better term. But we saw that with Brad Spence earlier this summer. You know, they offered Trent, his little brother, in the 25 class as well. So, again, I'm not ready to call it on who their quarterback might be. We saw this year how long that takes to figure out. But, boy, I really think that's something to be watching there with Michael Hawkins as well as his teammate, 2025 tight end, Devon Mitchell, big time. Trey, if there's a better tight end in that 25 class, I haven't seen him. I think he's number one in the class. He's got offers from Bama and Texas, A&M, Ohio State, LSU, Oklahoma, everybody except the Chiefs, it seems like. But, you know, he did tell me last night that Arkansas is on top as of right now. So a long way to go there with Devon Mitchell, but I was just really, really impressed by him, 6'4", 230, and just as smooth as they come, in my opinion. And then lastly.
Hey, Danny, so Allen High School, that's where Chad Morris was, right?
Yeah. Yeah, appreciate Coach hooking up Arkansas, right?
Well, he's not there anymore.
No,
it's kind of weird because he left because he had the school board or something said he had a college coaching opportunity, but it took forever for that to come out, and it ended up just being like an analyst with South Florida or something, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but I'm sure he had plenty of positive things to say about his time in Fayetteville, I'm sure. But, so that is funny. That's an interesting connection, but then want to wrap up with Kobe Black. Lord, who could forget this kid? He's almost a 5-star, number 37 in the country for 2024. He's a corner, also out of Texas, Connolly High School down in Waco. 6 foot 190. Got an older brother who played at Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State is found on his offer list, as well as Oregon, Oklahoma, Texas, A&M, USC. You get it. He's big time. So I will say, you know, Dominique Bowman, man, for a guy that we didn't know a whole lot about when he got here, he's really been impressive to me, Trey. But,
yeah.
I think he deserves a lot of credit. When we talk about, you know, under 30 list and all that, man, it'd be tough for me not to have him on it. But
I don't think he's under 30, though, is he?
Well, under 40. Let's make it under 40. He needs to be on a list of some sort. That dude he's really doing it. I'm in love with his 2023 class. I'm really high on that group. But, man, if you could turn around and follow up a Jalen Braxton with a guy like Kobe Black, are you kidding? I mean, we haven't seen that a lot here. So that's a big-time name to keep an eye on. I think Kobe is really high on Coach Bowman, and I like the name Kobe Black. That's about as tough as it gets right there.
So I want to take you back to Michael Hawkins, Danny, because obviously there's a few quarterbacks in that class we're following. Walker White, obviously out of Little Rock, Michael Hawkins out of Allen, and then there's DJ Lagway also out of Texas. So where do you think things are shaping up there? Those are all, they're all top 12 quarterbacks nationally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be interesting, possibly even more interesting than this year's class, because there's an in-state guy involved. Mm-hmm. You mentioned him. Walker is as good as any, just about in the country. I think his offer list is backing that up. You know, he's getting one after the other. When you see him in person, you understand it. You know, he's about 6'3", 220, just looks like $1 million, and number 168 in the country according to the composite. We've seen Florida and LSU and all these new teams. I think Ole Miss. He's had several come in this summer. But, traditionally, if I had to answer that question, I'd say the safe bet is probably the in-state guy, just based on history. But, obvious connections there with his family, and quite a few former Razorbacks in that family. So, if I'm not ready to make a prediction, but I will say history tends to lead me to believe that, it could be Walker White, but we know DJ Lagway's been here a couple of times. He's a 5-star for a reason. I think he deserves that, or he was a 5-star at one point. I think the composite now has him as a 4, but he's big time. And then, like I said, with Michael, man, boy, it seems to be happening rather quickly here in the the offer to his little brother, I can't say enough about that. That always jumps out to me because it seems like when they do that, they're trying to get over the top on one, so that's definitely going to stick out to me here in the next few months.
By the way, Danny mentioned 30 under 30. 24/7 Sports just came out with its 30 under 30 list, and Arkansas quality control coach Mark Calla, who's works with the quarterbacks, was on that list. He's 29, so he just slides into the 30 under 30. So congratulations to Mark Calla. Okay, Danny. By the way, if you aren't following Danny West, you can follow him at DannyWest247 on Twitter. Does a great job. Obviously been covering recruiting for a number of years with us. Most of his content is VIP, so you should try out the 1 month for $1 deal or 30% off for your first year to read most of Danny's content. All right, Danny. So I always get these dates confused. Is August 1st the first day that they can send out written scholarship offers? Yep. Okay.
Yep. So we've seen the new graphic so far today. A few of the commitments have gone ahead and put theirs out. Haven't seen a huge list of guys yet, but I'm more curious. You expect the committed guys to put them out, of course. And if they don't, you kind of feel a different way about that. But some of the remaining targets, like I said, man, they've got 23. There's not a whole lot of room left. You would have to imagine defensive line is still a priority for them. So I'm curious to see which one of these remaining guys might make put that out there and make it, something for people to see. But I haven't seen that so far just yet.
So you mentioned it's a dead period. So what's the next big thing on the list? Is it just starting getting visitors for game day?
September 3rd.
Is there anything materializing? I know we're a month out, but
yeah, so far no officials to speak of that I'm aware. I do know Fletcher Westfall in week 2 is going to be here. Now he's a 2024 4-star offensive lineman out of Virginia. Mm-hmm. He was actually here this spring, so trying to project a month from now, he would probably be the first one on my radar in terms of visits. But as you know, with a 2:30 opening day kick, should be a really well-attended game. I would expect they're probably going to have several, unofficials at least on campus for Cincinnati, as well as a second week there against Carolina.
Yeah, it should be an opportunity to have, a pretty nice home visit schedule. You don't have the game in Little Rock. You're the away team for Texas A&M, so you get the full – this is the year where we, say this is the good home schedule. So should be plenty of opportunities, although that South Carolina game, you'd like to have it earlier than 11 a.m. It's still nice that it's on ESPN, so, it's college game day, and then they just kind of seamlessly transition from that right into their first game. So the nation –
Have you seen the week 2 schedule, though? I've seen people kind of – they don't really like the 11 o'clock, but man, and I'm with you. I'd rather that be a night or late afternoon game, but that week 2 is loaded. If you're a college football fan sitting at the house, that ought to be a good
That's
day.
kind of the way it seems to go for some reason for most schools. They like to load up that week 2 schedule, get an easier opponent week 1. So that kind of seems like what everybody does.
It's not what Arkansas did, bud.
No, it's not. Arkansas scheduled
tougher and tougher every time I bring it
I know, a brutal week 1 game, and then just decided to throw right in the middle of the schedule a trip to BYU right before the bye week in week 8.
Yeah.
So
week
the good
7. News about that, I actually looked that up this morning. BYU's got Notre Dame a week prior.
I saw that,
so at least that helps.
At least that helps. All right, Danny.
All right, buddy.
I guess that's it.
See you.
All right, man. Appreciate you. All right, everybody, that's Danny West. Again, follow him at DannyWest247 on Twitter. And if you want to read his content, you will need a VIP subscription to HawgSports at HawgSports.com. $1 for your first month. Where do we want to take this next? A little basketball. So Arkansas had, I guess that was, when was that? Friday? Thursday? Arkansas had an open practice. Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis were both there. We got tons of footage, about 20 minutes worth of practice footage, tons of articles and stuff, and post practice interviews with several players: Anthony Black, Nick Smith, Trayvon Brazil, I believe is how you say it. Anyway, all that stuff's on HawgSports. So they just announced streaming information for the overseas tour, so you are going to be able to watch the games if you want to. So let's see. I think it's going to be like $30 or something. $29.99 a month. It's flowhoops.com. I think we're all familiar with that service for baseball and stuff. It's not the prettiest. You know, a lot of teams are getting their stuff played on SEC Network or the Plus or something. But so Arkansas plays Tuesday, August 9th in Valencia versus Valencia. Thursday, August 11th versus Barcelona Toto Estrella. I should have pronounced these out first. And then Saturday, August 13th versus Orange One Basket Bosano. And then Monday, August 15th versus Bakken Bears. So it's $30 if you want to watch those 4 games. I mean, how can you not? They got you, don't they? It's unfortunate that you got to pay extra, but it's the tip-off to a really intriguing basketball season coming up. Also, the Maui Invitational bracket set for Arkansas. The Maui Invitational runs Monday through Wednesday, November 21st through 23rd. So right as football season, regular season's coming to a close, you got the Maui Invitational. So tip-off time on the 21st for the Hogs. And Louisville Cardinals is scheduled for approximately 4 p.m. Central Time on ESPN2. If Arkansas wins, they face the winner of Texas Tech and Creighton the following day at 7 p.m. If they lose, they play the loser of that game at 1:30. Other matchups are kind of to be determined. Ohio State plays San Diego State. Cincinnati plays Arizona. Championship game will be November 23rd at 4 p.m. So hopefully Arkansas will be in that one. It'd be cool. All right. I think we go to questions now, right? We've gone 27 minutes in. Let's see if we got any questions built up. If you don't have one in, go ahead and get it in now. All right, there's some spam. We're going to go ahead and delete you. And Randall Fowle says, Woo Pig Suey can't wait for the season, both football and basketball. It has a chance to be one of the more magical sports years for the major sports in Arkansas history. I mean, you're going to be preseason top 10 or so in basketball. You're going to be preseason top 25 in football when all that comes out. You're going to be that in baseball as well. I mean, has a chance to be pretty special. Can't wait. I'm rested up. I'm about to bury my golf clubs in the backyard, but I will say, 2020 we had all this COVID stuff. I was texting my group about this. In 2020 we had all this COVID stuff, and it was just kind of chaotic. 2021 last year we moved offices, moved everything, moved all of this stuff. It was just, balls to the wall, hectic. And then, we're trying to get all this house done, doing all this stuff, and then boom, fall camp starts. This year, I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not building a garden. I'm just going to enjoy the house. I'm going to enjoy my time, appreciate the summer, and be really refreshed and ready to go for fall camp. So this is about as good as I've personally felt, and I need it because it's going to be a big year. So Landon Montgomery says Vegas only given us 6.5 games. It seems extremely off. Vegas normally doesn't miss that badly. Am I missing something? I'm calling for 10 wins, 10 with an over. So, I mean, what they're doing is trying to get people to bet on both sides. I think if you see more locally, like the bookies close to home, they've got it about 7.5 now because more people putting money on Arkansas getting the over. But nationally, they're just putting the line at what people would bet both sides on. So I would take the over, me personally. Ethan Malone says, is Hornsby going to be a standout, going to be a starting receiver? I know you said significant playing time at the first snap of the game. Do you see him out there? It's tough to tell, Ethan, because, I mean, really, when you look at Arkansas's wide receiver core, there's so many intriguing candidates out there. Now, me personally, I think from a overall top-end ceiling talent standpoint, he may be as high as anybody. Now, you're still going to work him both ways at quarterback and wide receiver. Is it going to be more of a specialty package deal? I don't know, but I'm on record saying I think he could have 20 or more catches this season, and for like a big number of yardage, because I think he'll have a pretty high average. But when Sam Pittman just said recently, the top 6 wide receivers are probably Hazelwood, Keytron Jackson, Warren Thompson, Matt Landers, who's just recently enrolled for the summer, Jaden Wilson, and Bryce Stevens. I think he said those would be the 6 right now. Now, Isaiah Satega is probably another guy, that's probably going to end up finding his way somewhere on there. Will Quincy McAdoo, will Samuel Bakke, some of those freshmen, will they emerge on that list? Will Harper Cole, who's on scholarship? But I've said this before. I think your 1 through 12, but your 2 through 12 wide receivers are better from a talent perspective than they were last year. Oh, hold on. There might be some breaking news here. Hold on. I'm bringing it up. Oh, man. Okay, so breaking news. Dax Courtney has medically retired. So Arkansas freshman tight end Dax Courtney has retired. It's with tears in my eyes that I announce I have been medically retired. The sport I put my heart into for 19 years is now over for me as a player. Football has been my life for as long as I can remember and will always be my number one story piece. But due to countless injuries I've sustained, I have to start thinking about life after football. That's sad. In a position where, there's some depth questions and such, but Dax Courtney was class of 2022 tight end, and he is medically retiring from football. The good news for Dax is he should be able to be pushed on medical hardship. So medical hardship means that he won't count against the 85, but his football career at Arkansas would be over, but would still be able to remain on scholarship. Okay, so at least there's that. It does open up a spot for Arkansas scholarship-wise. It should knock them down, unless I'm misunderstanding, it should knock them down to 83 scholarships. All right, texting my group, we need a story on that. All right, so unfortunate news on Dax Courtney retiring from football. Send a newsletter and text alert. All right, sorry about that. A little breaking news in the middle of the show, and disappointing for Dax Courtney. Certainly wish him the best. And, man, if you don't have your health, what do you have? So we'll find out from Sam Pittman pretty soon. Does that knock him down to 83? Does that give him the opportunity to bring in somebody late here or something like that? Who knows? Put a walk-on scholarship. I mean, there's a couple of quarterbacks that you're looking at, and Cade Fortin and Cade Renfro, who's coming back from an ACL. Those two guys, maybe they have an opportunity to step in and contribute and maybe be put on scholarship. Or maybe you look at Harper Cole and Jackson Woodard, placing them ahead on scholarship, instead of the retro that they have, but, for the next year. So we'll see how that situation develops. All right, let's get back to some questions here. If I can find my page, where'd we go? Everything's messed up. Oh, okay, there we are. All right. And more spam. All right, Matt Osborne says, living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I'd love a Music City Bowl. Yeah, that'd be cool. That'd be cool for you. Obviously, everybody's got their eyes, set a little bit higher, their sights set higher, but San Diego, only 4 more Saturdays, right? Nate Davis. Yeah, I guess so. Landon Montgomery says, how in the world is Tennessee getting so many top-tier recruits in the class of 23? Well, they're in a region where they're, I guess, able to pull. I mean, Tennessee has traditionally recruited pretty well overall. And there's a lot of buzz. There's a lot of buzz going on about Tennessee, Hendon Hooker and Josh Heupel and all that stuff. So they got a lot of momentum. They got to capitalize. They win 7 games last year, so it's not like they set the world on fire. Josh Grubb says, hey, Trey, thanks for the great content. Always looking forward to hearing you, Danny, and Curtis. Whoopig Suey, 11 wins with the bowl game. Don Henry says, appreciate that, Josh. Don Henry says, what's your opinion on how Bobby Portis will receive his first time back? Oh, Bobby Petrino, not Bobby Portis. You have Bobby Petrine. Well, I would think there would probably be a mix. The time he came to the Little Rock Touchdown Club, he got a standing ovation. I think probably booing is probably in order. I mean, Arkansas football was completely torpedoed from 2012 to most of the Brett Bielema era. Not all of it, but he was never able to fully recover it until last year. So 10 years of darkness after the Bobby Petrino incident. I know he had a couple of good years at Arkansas, but I don't know that warrants a standing ovation, and probably boos. I mean, I get it. I enjoyed 2011, 2010 too, but these last 10 years have been hellacious. Devin Lowry says everyone should wear neck braces for the Missouri State game. A neck brace out. Don Henry says we're ready for walk and talk. They'll be coming. I was going to do one in Atlanta, but obviously that got canceled on me. Don Henry says it'd be cool if a Harley Club did a ride that day, the day of. Ryan Horn says, can you please make me stop worrying about our defensive line? Not entirely. I think there's reason for concern, especially in the middle. Now, on the edge, I think they're going to be okay. I think that they've got enough. Now, what I wonder, with Dorian Gerald coming back, if he's fully back, if he's able to be fully back to form, if he's ready to go, then I think you consider maybe working Eric Gregory more inside. I think that'll give you a little bit more. I don't know that they're going to have just a beast inside like they had with the Ridgeway last year, although Isaiah Nichols is a good player, and he'll be better than a lot of the guys that he lines up against, and equal to many, and there'll be other guys that are better than him. But I think we're probably going to see a 3-man front, I guess, most of the time, and then maybe occasional 4-man front. You're not going to get a lot of sacks with a 3-man front. You're just not. But when I look at it with Jordan Dominic and Landon Jackson joining the fold at defensive end, in addition to Zach Williams, who's, I would assume he's probably up to about 260 pounds now, in addition to Eric Gregory, who play inside and outside, Eric Thomas, Jashad Stewart, I think you're in pretty good shape at defensive end, even though you may not rack up a whole bunch of sacks. And defensive tackle, you have Terry Hampton on board now from the transfer portal. Was Cam Ball going to step up? Marcus Miller, we've been waiting for him. How long does it take Torian Carter to get back? Those are all important questions. Excuse me. Trying to hiccup. So if Arkansas only has 2 quarterbacks, worst case scenario happens, do they have someone who can be number 3, basically? Cade Renfro and Cade Fortin. It's important to remember that both of those guys were scholarship quarterbacks at other schools, North Carolina and Ole Miss, brought in on scholarship. So they're not your typical just walk-ons. Of course, we've seen walk-ons emerge and be really good players. Excuse me. Got something going on. Landon Montgomery says Vegas. It hopped me back, sorry. Trey, what's the most likely trap game on the schedule? BYU. I think BYU, just where it falls. Right after a stretch where you're playing Texas A&M, Alabama, Mississippi State, and then suddenly BYU right before a bye week. Landon Montgomery says, who's the number 1 player on both sides of the ball we cannot afford to lose this season to make a run? Well, can't lose players. Obviously, KJ Jefferson. Can't lose KJ. Maybe that's too obvious. So maybe I'll go with somebody else. Maybe I think they could absorb losing an offensive lineman. You'd hate to lose your center, Ricky Stromberg. You'd hate to do that. They've got some other guys that can play there, but I might say Ricky Stromberg. Yeah, just because of all the knowledge and everything. He's your center. And on defense, I would say Jalen Catalon if they weren't so thin at linebacker. I don't think they could afford to lose like a Bumper Pool. Okay, so maybe I'll go Bumper Pool because safety, I think that they could move some things around. Jalen Catalon is maybe the best player on the team. So he would be hard to replace. Don Eldred says, practice your C and Z pronounced as th. So like for German, so it's Luke Has, if you're talking about that. Not Luke Hath. Hacz. Don Henry says KJ and Catalan would be my picks. Yeah. Dennis Mitchell says, I predict we beat the Vegas odds. I'm with you there, Dennis, with a couple of close losses, but a win against someone we upset. I expect us to be salty and tough out against anyone they take on the field. Now, last year, is it Spanish? Oh, yeah. It's Spanish. So it's Spanish in Spain, but not in Mexico, right? Yeah, there you go, Don, in Spain. I had a Spanish teacher in college, and I thought she had like a lisp because she was doing it like that, but like she would say gracias instead of gracias. Don Henry says, great job, guys. Love the show and look forward to it each week and follow you guys closely. Appreciate that, Don. And with that, I think we're probably going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Real quick one time, if you haven't thrown us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts now, please do so. I'm not going to go through the other stuff. Just take a moment. If you're watching on video, if you're listening on the podcast, just take a minute, throw us a 5-star rating, and say something funny or nice about the show, something other people will read. We would really appreciate that. It really does boost up the channel. And, of course, throw us the likes. But I said I was only going to talk about Apple Podcasts, so throw us that 5-star review if you have not done so already. Really appreciate that. All right, everybody. I want to thank Danny West for hopping on and joining us. And I'm going to thank Curtis Wilkerson, too, because a lot of the content that he provided we talked about today from basketball stuff. And sorry for Dax, Courtney. That's unfortunate. Right before everything gets started here. So hate to hear that. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back with you guys soon, maybe Thursday. Maybe preview the start of fall camp. We may wait till right after that. Maybe we'll do a walk and talk right after the first practice. Who knows? But it's all coming up pretty soon. All right, everybody. This has been Trey Beatty with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.